Well, welcome everyone to our October coffee chat. I'm Laura Knudsen-Murray. I'm the GIS coordinator and community outreach assistant with IrisBG. That's today's Oyvind Rusten, who is the founder and CEO of IrisBG. The idea with our coffee chats is that we'd offer you a space to connect with your peers and chat about issues you may be having or raise challenges to the community. We don't have a fixed format for these sessions. So if you would like to present a challenge or talk on a topic, it could be anything big or small, and hopefully we will make a new connection today, and together we may become a little bit wiser. So yes, just get in touch with us if there is something that you would like to challenge the community with, or if there's functionality that you'd like us to demonstrate, we're happy to take on those challenges. Here is a map of those of you that joined us today. It's good to see the representation from Europe and the US. So our agenda today, I'll share a couple surveys just to get us thinking about annual reports. And then Robert Cubey from Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh, will share some of his reporting. Thankful to have him here. And then I have a few tips just so that we can think about sharing records and telling that story internally as you're challenging your staff, but also externally to tell the value of plant records. So let me go ahead and launch the poll. What is your level of expertise in using IrisBG? So it looks like 36% advanced, 50% intermediate, 14% novice. That's great. So when you're thinking about annual reports, do you regularly produce annual reports for your plant records data? Now, some of us do, some of us don't. And then secondly, who do you share these reports with? Is it an internal report only? Does it go for your board or decision makers, or is it a report for the public? It's good to think about that. Are we getting too much into the weeds with the stats, or is it for internal staff to challenge or to think about what it is you're curating? And then for the third question, what would you like to include in your reports? Is it a conservation-focused report? Are you looking at changes over multiple years? Is it visitor engagement statistics? How many visitors are looking at your Garden Explorer website, that kind of thing? Or are there other things? Thank you for participating in the poll. Robert, if you are ready, pass the screen over to you.
Great, thank you. Two things to say straight off the bat. One is that we don't do annual reports. So I was going to speak about what we do, which is quarterly reporting. And then we'd produce a garden catalogue every 4 to 5 years. The quarterly reporting goes to our senior management team and the board of trustees. And then the garden catalogue is a public document that comes out every 4 or 5 years. So those are the answering your questions about audience. Those are the two audiences for these two different pieces of work. So first of all, the quarterly reporting. The first metric is number of accessions alive on site. I use a saved filter within Iris, which allows me to pick up just the RBGE collections and not our International Conifer Conservation Programme collections, which are spread around the UK at different gardens. So we manage those within Iris, but they're not included in our main set of stats. I then take the CSV and open the CSV in a straight pivot table. Open the CSV, pivot table it on an accession number, and then get the number of accessions, the number of items, and the number of individuals straight from that pivot table. It just drops straight out from the pivot table. So that's the first metric. The second one is number of new accessions so far this year. We have a plan to access around, we know we should be accessing around 2,000 new accessions every year to maintain the collection at its current status. And so there is a metric which we just keep track of through the year to see if we're getting near that kind of 2,000 figure. So on a quarterly basis, you'd expect to see 500, 1,000, 1,500, and then finishing the year at around the 2,000 figure mark. If we don't hit those figures, we then are asked why not, and there is because nobody was doing field work during COVID, or Nagoya protocols came in, which meant that everybody's frightened to go collecting, or whatever the reason is. But it just highlights and gives us a chance to give a narrative as to why we're not hitting our expected numbers. The third metric is glass houses. We are undertaking some glass work at the moment with our biomes project, renewing our glass houses. And so the metric to be able to provide what the numbers are under glass and how that is changing is quite useful. Again, using a saved filter for a list of locations. Fourth metric is the number of wild collected accessions within the whole collection. This includes the ICCP material this time, and it's both wild and VZs, the wild via garden. There is a requirement to know: are we maintaining our wild collected material? Are we increasing it, or is it decreasing as a percentage of the collection? So we need that to know that figure. I guess number 5/number 6, my numbering has gone up the spout, is the IUCN threat category. Again, similar: planting, propagations and quarantine, existing, no item history, and then it's in the list. And this time I did a little screen grab from the list for the quotes threatened IUCN categories. And this time on the pivot table, I throw in the threat category as well as the accession into the pivot table. So you group by IUCN category, but you get the same figures: accession, items, and individuals. All of those get entered into our ESM strategy, which is our corporate diligence software. And I have no idea if anybody ever looks at it at all. All I know is that if I don't put it in, I get a sharply worded email saying, "Where are your figures for this quarter?" But I don't know if anybody ever looks at it. But it is quite useful to just keep a track of, like I said, the accessions, where we are heading for expected figures. That's all. So that's our quarterly figures. Our catalogue is a different kettle of fish. We've been producing a catalogue since 1683. This is a copy of our first one. There is a link here which will take you to. We had 7 of them. We gave one of them to the late Queen back in 1960, and she scanned her copy. So that's a link to her copy on the slide. And so we've been doing catalogues kind of ever since. Current catalogue is 2001. This is the first one that wasn't actually published in paper form, and is available on the RBGE website, both as an Excel sheet, as a catalogue of what we had in the garden on a particular day, but then also there is the introduction, which contains this kind of data table: number of plants within each group, number of species, number of genera, number of families, and how we compare with the world totals and where those totals came from, and the sort of data along where is our wild collected material coming from. We've got 200 genera from the United Kingdom. We've got 787 taxa from the USA. So it's kind of like a larger scale. And we try and reproduce every 4 to 5 years. When we produce our catalogue, we try and mimic the same stats as was in the previous catalogue, so that they can be compared year upon, not year upon year, 4 year upon 4 year, 4 to 5 year upon 4 to 5 year. And that's available to download. And there is a large appendices at the end of that, which puts out all of the families that we're growing and how many are alive and what percentage of them, of the world numbers, are alive in the RBGE collection. And I don't know how much use it gets. We stopped producing a paper copy because it didn't sell particularly well, but then we had to print between 200 and 400 copies in order to make it a printable edition, and we weren't selling them, so we were giving them away. It was a nice-ish gift, but it was a static thing in time, and by the time the next one had come out, we'd still had copies of the old one floating around. And so the decision was made, rather than just adding to wood pulp, was to publish online rather than publish in paper copy, which is a little bit of a shame because we've got a nice history of paper copies going back through the years, but I still print one out and bind it up as normal. That is all I was going to share today.
Thank you, Robert. I wanted to take a moment to show all of you something that I created in Excel. It's a dashboard that you can customize for yourself and replicate a report that looks something like this. Here on the left, there is a logo that you can leave ours or insert your own, and it happens to have a hyperlink in it that takes you to our website. The icon below it that has the presentation is linked to this first tab, the dashboard, and you can copy this column onto all the other tabs to serve sort of as an application where it can direct whoever's using it back and forth between the dashboard and the data. And here I just have one of the spreadsheets attached. Perhaps it would be useful to be the main spreadsheet that you use. And here I have a link to contacts, so perhaps it would be useful to have different horticulturalists or garden managers and their contact information. And then here, perhaps I have it set up to send an email to support at IrisBG, but it would probably be useful to have whoever compiles the report and their email, and you could send an email directly to whoever compiled the report. If this is shared with management or even board members if they want to get into the details like that. So here I made different boxes just for the visual effect. You can click on it and edit the text. But I also placed a hyperlink in this particular box that sends you to the data sheet where all of this came from. And you can click over here and go back to the dashboard. I just chose a sampling of statistics. So the number of accessions added, number of propagules brought back from collection trips, items removed over a certain time period. And you can also export from IrisBG PNG map and just place that right in here. Just as a quick overview. It can be all the existing collection or filtered by a criteria that you find relevant for the year. For your visitor interactions, you will probably have to coordinate with the other staff at the garden, whether it's the marketing team or those who sell the tickets. So just going through the different tabs, you can run all kinds of reports in IrisBG. Shanna pulled a report of items removed and their date, and then I was able to just quick tally those up. There's a clever function that you can use in Excel. You can see it up here. It's called COUNTIF, and you highlight the column and then add a comma and parentheses, an asterisk, and the field, the value that you would like. Another asterisk, parentheses, and quotation marks, and then parentheses. And so you're able to do that with text and numbers, as you'll see in the next example. So here I chose from the years 2016 to 2023 and had that function run through this table, and it counted them up nicely for me. And then I selected this series of data and was able to make this chart, that bar chart that shows you by year when items were removed. Similarly, this chart over here, I selected the top taxon that were removed and was able to make a bar chart that way. And it's easy enough to change the gap width if you would like larger or smaller bars. That's an easy fix. Or choose the color of the bar that fits with your branding. In the next tab, I took that same loss information and then I looked up the highs and lows for the year. And then I was able to map that in a double chart. So you have bars and lines so that it can show the number of items lost and then the lowest temperature and the highest temperature. Just if you know that you've had a couple freeze events that aren't typical for your area or higher temperatures than normal, and it happens to correspond with those losses, then you can start thinking when you're replacing those plants, perhaps you need to take a different hardiness zone into account. If you need a summary of the accessions added, I have that here, and I have it linked. So I have it formatted with the formatting that I wanted on that in the dashboard over here. And then if it changes, it will automatically link this back. So I'll show you how that works. Oops. I have accessions added in 2023. And then that is row 3, column E. And I add in the colon. And then I have the summary function that it adds in from the bottom. And this is a report that you can pull from IrisBG. It's the sum account 01 report. Another fun chart that you can make for managers to take a look at what records have changed within a certain location. I got this information from the items 01 report, which is over here, and I selected all of this and inserted a pivot table in a new tab. So that's what this is over here. And when you have a pivot table, you are able to select different fields and drag and drop them. So I had it count the item status date for me, and you are able to filter it cleverly. So here's all of the records, and I put that in the total over here. But if you wanted to filter, you can type in 2023, and it will select all the 2023 dates, and you press OK. And then here you have this column. I did notice that there were a couple garden areas that had not been visited, so I added the 0. So don't just copy and paste, make sure that the rows match up. But those two areas were not, records hadn't been changed at all. So then I copied and pasted, and then I was able to make this clever radar chart. So the green shows the total number of records, and the orange shows the records that changed during 2023. So it gives you an idea of perhaps areas that need to be surveyed in 2024 and have those accessions checked on, and also areas where you're doing pretty well, and perhaps areas of the garden that need to have some records. So this gives you a clever visual on what's going on. And another way to show that from year to year is mapping the number of accessions by location. And I put a transparency on one of the years so that you could see behind. Right? So this says 2019 versus 2021 and what changed. So it gives you a visual of areas where maybe many accessions were lost. And again, that data can come from the items 01 export. Another fun visual is the provenance composition of the collection by year. So if it is a priority of your garden to have wild collected versus unrecorded or garden collected accessions, this is a great way to visualize that change over time. The sample data I was working from wasn't very rich, so this is fake data, but you get the same idea. It comes from the catalog. You have the provenance code. Same thing, you can make a pivot table, as I did over here, where you have the count of the provenance codes. You can sort by year and provenance code, or looks like that if you just do it. You'll want the provenance code in there so you can separate it out. And then you can make a stacked bar chart that shows that change over time. Please let us know if you have questions about how this particular chart works, but you should be able to make something visually interesting that tells the story of what's going on in your collection. And feel free to customize this report, this dashboard, how you see fit. And if you come up with something clever, please share it with all of us. To export a report in IrisBG, go under Reports And for this demonstration for the dashboard, it's helpful to use the item O2 item data report. And I selected item types equal to planting, the item short code in the list, and I selected everything. Item type status equal to existing. Then I selected dates, modification dates for the status changing between 2020 and 2023. And then I selected all the provenance in the list. And then you export. Save where you would like to have the file saved. Click Save. And it will generate that report for you. When it is done, it will look something like this with all of those criteria listed at the top and the items that you need off to the side. It's just that easy. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you again, Robert, for sharing your expertise and what you've learned. Good to see everyone. See you next time.